This is the future they warned us about. No one took a stand. Our defenses were down. We were apathetic and ineffective.
By unanimous vote, the Supreme Court strengthened its stand on abortion today.
The number of teens involved in drug and alcohol abuse is doubled.
Somehow, we lost the way. A million small compromises. We cared only for ourselves. We were the revolutionaries that should have made a difference.
The number of cases of domestic violence reached record highs this year as families continue to come
According to the latest Gallup poll of 1,000 residents,
Suicide rates among teens and young adults continues to skyrocket.
recent polls show that Christianity is no longer the largest religion in the world.
It is time for a revolution.
Is a revolution needed in the American church? And I would say, in my humble opinion, nothing short of revolution will make any difference. This isn't something that can be fixed by a few adjustments. It's got to be turned upside down.
If the church really was doing well, I think society would look different. I think that we would have transformation of neighborhoods and nations, but we're not.
It seems to me as though churches are doing quite well at reaching a certain segment of the population that is not too far culturally from church life and culture.
The church that we go to, it's a fine church. We call it a fine church, you know. We have a few hundred people every year get saved. The problem is there's a handful of hundred leaving, you know. So are we bigger than we were? Well, yeah, but here's what you cannot deny. Whatever the size of that church is, it pales in comparison with the population growth and just the community that we live in.
But have a look at American society, folks. I mean, open your eyes to who's not being reached by this. And I think what you'll discover is increasing segments of American society are completely uninterested in church as it is now.
All you need to do is to go to your northwest, northeast, and you find there more secular, or shall we say post-church kind of societies. And I think they are really America in 10 years' time, if we're not careful.
I guess you have to realize that what you're doing is not working.
I'm not aware of any context in the West where the church is growing. So we pretty much are going the way of Europe.
So the revolution's got to start. It's not an option, it's an essential.
What does it look like to live fully and seamlessly and successfully, as it were, right here in the midst of American culture in the 21st century, but also maintain a sense of distinctiveness about our faithfulness to Jesus? That's, to me it seems, that's one of the primary challenges of the contemporary church experience.
We're not really making a difference because we have been extracted from the world. And you know, there's this whole Christian ghetto where you have Christian yellow pages, where you can hire now Christian plumbers to put Christian pipes in your Christian kitchen, and you don't even have to get yourself dirty with non-Christians anymore.
As soon as we do that, we end up with these two worlds, the Christian world and the non-Christian world, with no interaction between them. I went to a church once that it had its own gym, its own fitness centre in the church. I mean, the Christians in that church never had to sweat next to any non-Christians ever again. You could do it all in church.
You've got to have contact with lost people if you're going to have an impact on the lives of lost people. You know, they're not coming to us. That's pretty obvious. And we're going to have to go where they are.
So I think half the problem in our churches is that we've paid pastoral staff to do mission, and we're observers, or we're the ones who raise the money for them to do it. as distinct from churches recognizing that mission actually catalyzes community more marvelously than any attempt to do it in and of itself.
The clergy's laity, secular, sacred, has got to go. There's no such thing in the Bible. Yes, God, there are offices and gifts that God gives to equip others for the work of ministry, but it's not a relative value judgment. The value of one given the gift of pastor is not greater than one given the gift of motherhood or of running a business and so forth. In God's eyes, all are equal because it's God that gives the gift. God makes the calling. He calls some to do this and some to do that. And what makes it holy isn't the title.
One of the most potent pieces of New Testament teaching about the church is the statement that every believer is a minister and ought to be released as such. The belief in the priesthood of all believers. And I think that the fact that we very, very seldom have activated the full priesthood of every believer is one of the most disastrous impacts of the institutional church.
Well, the devil is a thief and a murderer, and he has stolen from us this idea that we are all priests.
If I was the devil and I wanted to take the church down, I would certainly do that. Make a professional elite class and tell everyone else that they're really second-rate Christians and they don't get to play.
If I'm a plumber, if I'm a school teacher, if I'm a lawyer, it really doesn't matter. Every one of us has been called.
Well, you know, I believe that our conversion is our commission. We are commissioned into the ministry of Jesus Christ when we are converted into His body. You become a Christian.
There's a massive responsibility for the people who come in every week and sit down in the pew. You know, that's the army that God has called. And if you want to see the world come to Christ, you're going to have to see an army of millions of priests showing up Monday through Sunday.
Quite frankly, we've lost the plot somewhere along the line, and church has become a religious event that takes place once a week, and it was never meant to be that. Church is meant to be a spiritual family on mission together.
The church is never designed to be a place where you bring people to hear about how they can be saved. The church has always been a place where you bring believers to be equipped to go into the world and share the life-changing good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. We got it backwards.
Jesus was not as interested in drawing large crowds as He was in transforming a few that could take that message further. So I think if we began to truly measure the church's fruitfulness, we would look more for stories, narratives of people's lives changing. Not that it changed in the past, but that it's constantly changing. The imminent presence of Christ is transforming lives every day, kind of a thing.
I think the problem, honestly, in missionality is I don't know if our people truly love Jesus enough for their lives to make a difference. Because me just being nice to the lady at Publix or my neighbor, I don't know if it's enough. I think it's when they see the love that I have for them because of my love for Christ first, that's when it makes a difference.
You know, when you go to the movies, you see a trailer, you turn to the person next to you and say, "Oh, do you want to see that?" Well, people ought to look at the church. They ought to look at individual Christians. And they ought to see a trailer of this world to come. They ought to see peace, justice, love, mercy, kindness. They also ought to see celebration and joy and delicious flavours and beautiful life. I mean, they ought to look at it and think, oh, I'd like to see the whole thing. Well, I think that's the purpose of the church, to announce and to demonstrate the universal reign of God in Christ. I heard someone say once, your missional effectiveness is directly proportional to your relational capacity. So if you're on 100 Christian committees, if you have to serve in the Christian fitness centre, if you get your hair done in the Christian salon, if you're in all these Christian meetings, you've got no time for anyone, relational capacity is low, missional capacity is low. It's a very, very simple equation.
I can tell you what ministry is not. I teach a Sunday school class. I play in the church orchestra. You know, I help with small groups for my accountability groups for my kids. I mean, I'm very, very involved. I enjoy that, but if just getting busy is what you equate to being ministry, then you've missed it.
For the people that won't come to us, who aren't attracted to our programs or our culture, or belief life programs, who's going to those that won't come?
It's not that building on Sunday mornings. It's not just Wednesday night Bible studies. It's the people that I'm encountering every day doing little things by using the things that you've been gifted with.
You know, Jesus was accused of a lot of things, and one of the major accusations against him was he was a drunkard and a glutton because he hung out with people who like to eat and drink. You know, I like what my friends Alan and Deborah Hirsch write in their book Untamed. He said, Jesus was hated by the religious conservatives, but loved by the very sinful people. And we've got it backwards. We are loved and respected by the more religious conservative people, and we're hated by the sinners. We must be doing something wrong. Jesus is the core. You know, the church never saved anybody. Church doesn't change lives. The Bible doesn't say, for God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten church. It's Jesus that makes the difference. Let's plant Jesus and see what comes from that seed, as opposed to planting an organization or an event that happens once a week, that doesn't really change lives.
The Holy Spirit of God has taken you into a place of mission and won't allow you to be satisfied with non-missional, institutional, organised religion. The Father sends the Son. Jesus says, so I send you. So I would have thought at the very essence of Christian identity was the idea of being sent to. To whom have I been sent?
For a Christian, everything is sacred. Life is ministry in the biblical model. We don't have to go to church to do ministry. We can do ministry over the back fence. We can do ministry while we're changing our baby. You know, we can do ministry while we're on an airplane, going to a business meeting or at the business meeting. Life is intended to be ministry.
If I had the ear of a large group of Americans, even just for a short time, I would simply remind us of our founder, Jesus Christ, and that our fundamental job is to become more and more and more like him. And you can't go wrong.
I'd just like to say, what would it look like if Jesus moved into your neighbourhood? What would he do? Who would he hang out with? What would he give his time to? And then do that. Go and do that.
The plan is to get out, which means, okay, I don't need to run to my local church so much. I need to run out to where the lost are, to seek and to save them.
You know, whether I'm walking in my neighborhood, whether I'm at the soccer fields at my daughter's games, wherever I go, whatever I do, I'm always available to God as a missionary, living sent in the culture that he placed me. It's not about a building, it's not about a Sunday event. It's about looking for people that God puts in your life each day and making a difference in their lives by sharing Christ.
If you get a hold of this idea, it changes everything. Suddenly now, you don't have to be going into ministry to be in a sacred career. But if I'm working as an accountant for Hewlett-Packard, it's a sacred calling. I go there as unto Jesus. I work for the Lord. I am the agent of God's kingdom wherever I go. Even if it's pumping gas at the Shell gas station, I'm doing so for Jesus. Every job becomes sacred. Every occupation is holy.
Listen to God and listen to those around you. And if you're doing that, if you're listening to God and being obedient to what he says and listening to the people around you and hearing their needs, you know, their spiritual needs, and acting on those needs, that's missional. You know, if we can get that right, we've got a whole lot of good things going for us.
You know, I think that a revolution is already happening in the American church. We are not defined by our coming together, we're defined by our going out together.